Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of SkinTrack.com podcast. I am Stano, and I would like to say thank you for all your feedback from the first episode, which was an interview with Melanie Bernier. And if you haven't heard it, then you can find it on SkinTrack.com or YouTube. And today I'm gonna be talking to Chad Brackelsberg, who is the race director for Wasatch Powder Keg, which is one of the most popular skimo races in North America. And he managed to grow it into a 3-day event, and I'll be talking to him about that, about his organizing experience, as well as about his own racing, as he races ultra trail running and skimo racing as well. So there will be tons of tips for race organizers as well as racers, and we touched on so many things, and we'll be previewing the Powder Keg in great detail. And the date for that race is March 7 to March 9th, and it's essentially a 3-day skimo festival. And I will be there as well as with more Canadian racers to spice things up. But before we go into that, I want to give you a preview what's coming up this weekend. So first it's the Castle Mountain race in Alberta, Canada. Then there will be Hidden Challenge in Colorado. And both of these races will be taking place on Saturday, January 11th. And then there should be a race at J Peak over in Vermont on Saturday or Sunday. And the preview for the Castle race is I won it last year, so I know the course was first time race on the calendar last year, and the organizers did a good job except some flagging issues on the course, but consists of 2 big climbs essentially. The first one, maybe 10 minutes off the gun, goes into a narrow skin track in the woods. And lots of switchbacks, you need to be grabbing trees to pull yourself up some of them. But that's essentially, that's my strength, so I was able to get away from Peter Knight there. And then he caught me later on in the race, and then we duked it out again. But that's, if you want to do well there, make sure to be positioned for those switchbacks and then do your best you can to get up that. And the skiing is amazing there, the snow was great, and the last descent is through cat skiing terrain, which was lots of powder and face shots. And there should be a big fight on the boys end of things, as Rainer Tony will be down there, as well as Eric Carter, partner on SkinTrack with me, then Ben Parsons, which is always my big rival. He'll be there, coming up from Montana. And then Peter Knight will be there. And then some other names that I know will be strong, but they are not known yet. And unfortunately, I won't be there, as I'm still healing from my injured ankle injury from from early November 2013. So on the girls' end, the fight should be fierce as well, but mostly due to absence of Melanie Bernier, since she would be the outright favorite to win it, I would think. She's racing this weekend in Europe in her first ISMF race this year. And again, we discussed that in the interview with her, so you can listen to that. And at the end of talking to Chad, I'll just touch briefly on a race I will be part as an organizer this year, which is the Dogtooth Dash. It will be the Canadian Championships in vertical and individual, and it will take place late in the March. So okay, let's dive into the interview with Chad now. And if you find that Chad is repeating himself about 15 minutes in, it's not his fault, but technology surprised me and I had to re-record something with him that he already said, and I made him to say it again. So I'm gonna try to lay it over, but there could be overlap. So sorry for that, and enjoy. Okay, so let's talk about the powder keg history. If you can talk about how it all started and where is your place in it, and yeah, whatever comes with that.
Sure. Yeah, so the powder keg was started in 2003 was the first race, and it was started by Andrew McLean, Butch Adams, and Colleen Nipkow, with a lot of support from Black Diamond, and they still remain one of our big supporters. And it was really started when Randonnée racing started in the U.S., so it was part of the LifeLink series. The first ski mountaineering race in the U.S. was actually the Jackson Hole race, which was the initial LifeLink first, the first race of the LifeLink series, and the powder keg became the second one. I had moved to Utah the year before and had heard about this race just as I was really starting to take up backcountry skiing and thought it was the neatest thing ever. And so that first year I had raced in it and had actually raced in all of the races until I took over as part of the committee of the race directors. And the powder keg still remains today one of the larger races. It originally was an Elta to Brighton race, and then it was a World Cup race in 2004 and 5, and they realized that there's not enough time for the race organizers to drive from Elta down Little Cottonwood Canyon and then up Big Cottonwood Canyon to Brighton before the racers finished. So it actually became a race just fully starting and finishing at Elta Ski Resort. We took over the race in 2009 and from Andrew, Butch, and Colleen, and it was myself, my wife Emily Brackelsberg, and then Mark Christofferson and his wife Gambrelli Lako, and we took it over and we held it the first year at Elta, and then sort of in an effort to make it our own and for a little bit of a change, we moved the race to Brighton in 2010, and Brighton has been just an amazing host for the race and just graciously opens their doors to us for almost everything we need, and so it's really quite fantastic having it there. They have a great mix of inbounds and backcountry access terrain that we get to race on, which really makes it a perfect venue. We get up high in the mountain where you have resort or views of Alta, Solitude, Snowbird, as well as some of the great peaks of the Wasatch, like Timpanogos. And so it's really a great race in that regards. And it's always fun that I like to be up on the ridge for sunrise on race morning, and it's a pretty spectacular thing to watch the racers come in with the great morning colors of the sun coming up. Um, and over the past couple of years, Mark and Gambrelli have stepped out of the race, and we've brought in other people to help us. We now have Eric Bunce and Nick Francis, who are really instrumental in helping us put together the race, which is it's really necessary since we've grown it over the last 2 years from a single day race to a 3 day race. It really becomes a joint group effort to put that all together, because there's always, as you know, Stan, when you put a race together, there's always a lot of last minute changes that you're making that you never have time to make yourself. So it's great that we have people we can rely on to help us pull it off every year. Um, so that's really the history of it and how we've gotten it to where it is today.
Yeah, okay. And so you have quite the crew now, uh, doing everything. Like you have a nice team set up.
Yeah, we do. We have a real strong team of people that we can work together well, and we can really split up the duties so that throughout the year, it's really become a 12-month effort. It used to be just a few months of planning, and really we work on it all year now. And so, with having four of us intimately involved, it really does lessen the load for everybody and makes it work really well for everyone, I think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, yeah. And so now you have the 3 day effort. I mean, 3 day race format. So when did you start that?
So in 2012, we decided we'd try a sprint out just as, kind of to see what would happen. And so what we did that year is we finished up the regular powder keg race on Saturday morning, and then we gave everybody a couple-hour break, and then we had a sprint race after that. And there was probably only a dozen and a half to 2 dozen people that took part in the sprint that year, but it was a lot of fun. As you know, skimo racing isn't the biggest spectator sport in the U.S., but the spectators who were there really enjoyed watching it and thought it was a good time. The racers had a good time. So last year so at the end of 2012, we decided that we'd definitely make it an official race the following year. And then through working with Pete and Brian Wickenhauser and some others, we've talked that the U.S. really needed more stage style races, multi-day events. And so, since we did have a pretty good committee, we kind of talked with that, we should be able to pull this off. And so we looked at some of the terrain and options. And so we decided last year to add our technical teams race as well. So we ended up with a format of a Friday night or Friday late afternoon sprint race, where last year we had followed kind of the ISMF format with a qualifier plus then a skier cross style finals, and then the standard powder keg on Saturday and our technical teams race on Sunday. And the goal of our technical teams was really to be sort of a graduate level race. So something that it wasn't for your beginner racer. It was going to be a very difficult race. So we put together a course that was about 9,500 feet of climbing over 15 miles, and you'd have to complete it with your partner. Yeah, so our goal was really to make a very challenging technical course that would really set itself apart from some of the other standard ski mountaineering races in the U.S. and potentially even North America. So what we looked at is, where could we go to make it long, put in some technical rope sections, things like that. And, we were able to put together really a quite nice course that made use of some of the Saturday individual course, but then also a lot of new terrain. And we were able to fix ropes up the face of Mount Millicent so that spectators can actually, from the base of Brighton, watch all the racers climbing the ropes to the summit of Mount Millicent and then traversing across the ridge. And so the rope section, I think we ended up with about 800 to 900 feet of fixed line, which required the use of ascenders and via ferrata to climb up the face, and then a via ferrata kit just to traverse across the ridge until they put their skis on again for the descent. And most of the people had great feedback from it. Everybody seemed to really like it, ranging from that was the hardest thing I've ever done to that was just amazing. So I think we were very successful in what we did with it, and people seemed to really enjoy it a lot.
Okay, yeah, I like that, because you are introducing the mountaineering back to ski mountaineering, right?
And that was exactly our goal. Put the mountaineering back in ski mountaineering.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm really stoked to come down this year and to check that out. And so it sounds like Pyramenta on the third day when racers go over Grand Mont, and that's exactly how it is. A long fixed line and on the ridge, and people can watch it from above. So that's great. Yeah, and how many people did you have last year participating in just throughout the whole thing?
So last year we had around a total of about 220 racers or so between the three events. We had about 130 on Saturdays individual, 30 to 40 in the sprint, and I believe we had 30 teams, so 60 people for the technical teams. And then out of that, we had about 30 people who did all three events last year and really, put themselves out there for 3 hard days, which ended up being about 17,000 feet of climbing, I believe, between the 3 days.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. And I like stage race format. It's just unfortunately or back-to-back racing, but better when it's stage racing because your time accumulates, and I always felt I can recover faster than perhaps some other people. So yeah, it's good because you get to see the same people and you get to battle with them again and have shared dinner at night. So that's good.
It makes it fun. 'Cause it definitely makes there a lot of small, as you said, little battles that play out at the various areas. It's not just about the lead group. There's lots of little battles that start occurring all throughout the race, which is a lot of fun to watch kind of play out through the weekend.
Okay, and so in 2004 you are upping up the ante with your race, and you're gonna host the North American Ski Mountaineering Championships. And so will that be over the 3 races, or is each race treated separately?
So what we're going to do is that it's actually going to be a little of both. So we will have a North American champion for the sprint, the individual, plus the team, and then we'll award an overall weekend prize as well. So it is going to be, really almost four different championships.
Okay, okay. And you also got the recognition from ISMF, which is the International Ski Mountaineering Federation. So can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so we've been working for the last couple years to bring international racing back to really North America, and we've been working with David Dornian up there, and some of the others. Kylie came down, and Brent and Harris, and a few others came down last year. And we brought over one of the ISMF trainers, and a bunch of us got certified as ISMF referees last year. And with really most of us were also race directors. So our goal was that, as race directors, by getting this certification, we'd be better able to put on a race that met international criteria, but then also that we'd be able to help each other out by being the referee for each other's races. So, last year, we got that all taken care of, and this year we're having the Powder Keg, the Crested Butte race, and the Irwin Lodge race are all ISMF certified races in the U.S. And so, really, it steps up what we do as race directors is we have to meet certain ISMF criteria around course specifics for how steep the skin tracks can be, how it's marked, where they can go, and all kinds of other rules that have to be there, as well as there will be an ISMF referee at each of those races as the judge and the final judge. So even our volunteers have to step up their work a little bit, and they have to get familiar with some of the rules so that at different checkpoints and transitions, they can recognize infractions of the rules and be able to document it, and so that we can apply the point or time penalties at the end of the race. So, it's a little more work, but it's a lot of fun, and we hope it brings some international recognition to ski mountaineering in North America and really the rapid growth that we're seeing both in the US and Canada.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And it seems also like what you just described, that you had the referees taken care of last year, and now because this higher standard raises you to up your game and your commitment and everything like that, but also your volunteers or helpers, that essentially the knowledge of how to run a race, how to set it up, it's just trickling down to a uh, much wider audience. So when at any point those people decide to do their own race in 5 years, they will know much more than we used to know. So
Yeah,
that's
Ben, and that's exactly right. I mean, I have, kind of a goal of my own that we can more standardize racing in the US and Canada so that, it used to be you'd go to three different races and they were all marked with different color flags, and, standardizing these things to what they use elsewhere just prepares our racers to be better adapted when they go to Europe to race, because now, as you heard in the last interview you did with Mel, she's over there racing this winter. Meredith Edwards from the U.S. is over there racing. Every year we have several racers from both countries that go over to Europe to race, and it's good if we are preparing our racers to be ready to race in Europe.
Yeah, and that's something that I really pushed for here in Canada 6, 7 years ago, and even Dave was looking at me a little strangely at that time, because they just thought that it's so much work. But then I tried to prove it with my own race, putting on my own race, and then they saw that it's okay. It's not something you cannot do or you need 100 people for. It's, yeah, you're gonna put few more hours, but mostly you're just gonna plan a little bit ahead, and it's nothing you can have to come up with because it's been reinvented in Europe. So just take that and just do it. And I agree with the flagging, and I wrote an article a couple of weeks back about some tips for organizers, and one of them was that I see as a big one is to essentially flag the ups with green and downs with red, because that's been used for a long time, makes sense, and or at least standardize it, because then when I go race to states, then each venue seems to use different colors, and if I don't know the skier, I don't really know where to go.
Yeah, no, and
sometimes.
it's very confusing. You know, it's as a racer, we have enough to think about while we're racing that we don't really want to think about the colors of the flags that we're supposed to be following because you know, it
Yeah.
gets to be a little overwhelming, and we just want to go, and so that makes it a lot easier for all of us, I think.
Yeah, and one thing I would advocate for, which I as well advocated in the past here in Canada at least, that I really believe that organizers that are organizing races or are planning to organize a race or want to step up the game, there is few organizers in North America. I think that well, in states you guys are much better with this, but in Canada we certainly know that not many organizers actually raced at least one race or are racing here and there, because I think that experience they can really relate to what we see through our eyes when we race. So I would advocate for that.
No, I'm definitely a believer in that. You know, whether it's running or skiing, when you're doing an event that's run by somebody that also races, you can definitely tell a difference. It's a higher caliber. Very frequently it's a much higher caliber because they think like a racer when they're setting the course and marking the course and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so we agree on that. That's great, and I really like that. That essentially you are now heading the efforts in US, and you have the same idea. So that's good. And so for this year for 2014, since it has the ISMF recognition, how many Euros do you expect to come? Do you have anyone already showing interest that they might come?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't heard directly from anybody yet. We're always guaranteed our local Euro Gemma Aro Rebo, who is our Catalan transplant. Who's been living in Park City for the last couple years, and she's done a good job when she goes home of talking some of her fellow racers from there into how great the race scene is here. And so last year, two of her friends, Martin Gerard, came over and raced and had a really good time. So I'm hoping that with some of the word of mouth that's been happening, and then the ISMF sanctioning that there will be a few people that will come over. I've heard from a few people within the ISMF, a couple Italians that work with ISMF that are coming over just as part of ISMF, but not to race. And so hopefully that will also draw some other attention that, since they're traveling to all the races in Europe and now they're going to come over to the US, hopefully they'll talk a little bit about that and garner some interest. And, I'd be happy if we got a couple people that did come over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be super great to raise the competition. That's one thing, and for people that travel to Europe to the worlds, they can compare again without traveling. And for people that more on a hobby side, they get to see like really how fast it's possible to go. And yeah, and but the US scene is developing really nicely. Like you guys, every year the pool of fast racers is just keeps growing. So
Yeah, it really does. We had the first kind of major stage race this last weekend, the Wyoming Roundup, and so in 2 days we had three races, and it really was impressive. Just how fast people have gotten and how competitive it's gotten in a short period of time. It's definitely stepped up the game quite a bit, and people are really having to train hard now. If you look at the top this weekend after three races, the top three guys were only separated by less than 6 minutes,
yeah,
and the top seven were separated by less than 30 minutes. So it definitely speaks a lot to what is happening to the sport in all of North America, and it's really exciting to see it, and it's exciting to be part of it.
yeah, yeah, for sure, yeah. And you were racing as well, right?
I did race this weekend. It was a tough weekend. It was a big weekend. We did about 15,000 feet of climbing, and it was the starting line on Sunday for the Jackson race was -8 Fahrenheit with 40-mile-an-hour winds. So it made for challenging race conditions. Your body temperature regulation was the key to success. There was a lot of frostbite on a lot of people, fingers, toes, cheeks, things like that. But it went really well. I had a great weekend of racing. I ended in the top 10, so I was really happy with that as a overall finish.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, top 10 in US. That's good. And yeah, my personal prediction is that in 5 years we will see that we should see a medal from some World Cup competitions from a ski mountaineering men, because we already have medal from with Nina Silic.
Yep.
But my personal predictions from what I see, I think in 5 years there will be someone that will be able to go that fast. So that,
No, I agree, and I hope it's less than 5 years.
oh, me too. But just look, because the Euros are getting always a little faster as well. So we will see. And then maybe the person is not in the sport yet. We might not know.
Those of us that talk about it around here think that a lot of that future is going to depend upon what happens with the IOC decision to see if ski mountaineering will be an Olympic sport. And when we talk here, we just kind of say that if it gets approved to be in the Olympics, the level of the racer is going to skyrocket very, very quickly. And we fear that even the people that we think are fast today may be not that fast if it starts to get to that level of a game.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that yeah, if it gets announced as Olympic sport, then definitely there will be other people from other sports looking into perhaps going that way if they also like ski touring already. Makes sense, yeah. And just so we don't forget, when exactly is Powder Keg in 2014?
So March 7th through 9th this year. So it's the second full weekend of March, and so usually we're blessed with some good snow and warm weather, which makes it fun to race hard in the morning, and then you can enjoy a barbecue and some beer out in the sun in the afternoon. One of the exciting things we're doing this year is we partnered with the Outdoor Research Vert Fest, which is a kind of a they call it a day of or a weekend of mountain metal, and it's really just a bunch of events and for education that will occur in the afternoons. So people can race all morning, and then they can take advantage of some educational events around steep skiing, avalanche rescue, terrain selection, and avalanche terrain selection, and things like that. So there's going to be a band on Saturday afternoon, outdoor beer garden, things like that. So it should be starting around 3 o'clock on Friday and ending at 4 o'clock on Sunday. It's going to be a full fun weekend, we think.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw on your website that you have online registration to come. When that will be open?
Yes, we should have registration open within the next week. So we will post both on the website, Facebook, and Twitter when we have that open. We are switching to chip timing this year, and so it's pretty exciting for us. We think that's going to reduce our amount of work that it takes us to get our results posted each day by quite a bit. So we're working very hard right now with the chip timing company to get the registration set up, and we just have a couple more hours of work just to finalize a couple tweaks on the registration process. So I think it should be up by the end of this week, and you can follow our Twitter or Facebook account, which is just PowKeg, to find out when that opens.
Okay, and with chip timing, will you have also, let's say, during the individual race, as people climb up and they ski down, will you have some intermediate checkpoints where you will take time?
At this point, we're not planning on doing any intermediate checkpoints just because of dragging the battery packs and the timing mats out into the backcountry, having them in the snow, things like that. The timing company is more focused on biking and running events, so their mats really aren't necessarily meant to be buried in the snow for a day or so. And so I think we're just going to go with start and finish times for now. The winning time is usually about 2 hours, so it's tough to do real time updates on a 2 hour event.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's. I was just asking because would be nice to see not necessarily just live, but the racers can take a look at the end. It's like, oh, halfway through, I was. This was my time, or this is
Yes.
where I placed. But definitely there is technology
technology challenges as I just experienced a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's talk about you now for a while, because you are not only an organizer, but you are also a racer yourself. And just we essentially met only twice, which was last year, essentially a year ago, in Jackson Hole, and then the next day at Grand Targhee. We talked briefly. So I know that you are a skimo racer, runner, and yeah. So talk if you can talk about what sports do you do and which ones you race.
Mostly ski mountaineering and ultra running. I dabble a little bit into some mountain bike racing, but usually just as part of stage races that are involved with ultra runs. But I spend my summers, logging as many trail miles as I can in the mountains, and my winters logging as much snow vert as I can in the mountains. And I really try to get a little bit of an off season in between, but it gets pretty hard because the ski mountaineering and the ultra running season more and more start to overlap, especially in the spring. So you really end up with a pretty packed race schedule each year, it seems like.
Yeah, okay. And you do how many ultra runs do you do per summer, like competition wise?
It really depends on the year. I typically do 1 to 2 50 milers and 1 to 2 100 milers each summer. I've cut back my racing a little bit. Next summer, I'm actually planning on taking a race season off and focusing on more project running because I've really gotten an interest in the last few years about more of the long distance kind of solo runs, a few fastest known time attempts and things like that. And so, still trying to figure out exactly what my summer will bring, but I'm hoping to put together a couple fun little runs like that. That'll probably be longer and harder than most of the ultras I would do, but kind of avoid the race scene a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Myself, I am a fan of doing this on skis in the spring, and it's just yeah, that's the same idea. Is to it's a different thing because you pick your day, you pick so a couple things need to merge. In one way, you are not forced to perform on a certain date because that's when it's happening. But on the other hand, you need to get the weather together, you need to have the snow together, you need to be in good shape. So lots of things needs to line up, and then it's lots of fun when they do.
Yeah, it
But
really is, and it's so mentally challenging when you go out and you're running. You're going to run 80 to 100 or more miles alone, or even with one other person, and you're carrying everything with you for that period of time, which could be 20 to 30 hours, and you also have to worry about navigating all night. And so, you run a 100-mile ultra run, and you really just follow flag and glow stick from one to the next, where when you go out and do these attempts, it's a different sport and it's a lot of fun because you're out there and you're solely responsible for everything that happens, and you really have to keep your head together the entire time because you can't afford many lapses, and you get off track a little bit and it can be pretty devastating.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, like in Canada, the challenge is also that as soon as you leave a car, and sometimes even before, you lose all cell phone signal. So you're just out there, and you have to be sure, despite that you are pushing fast, always at the back of your mind, it's like nothing can happen, nothing can happen. Like there cannot be an accident because there is virtually you don't have too much with you at the first place. Then you can't call anyone. You have to be able to make it out of there by yourself. So
Yeah.
it's yeah. So yeah, that's great stuff. And I saw, I think on your blog, you did a run this summer with your wife, like a 27-hour or 16-hour FKT.
Yeah, so we went out and the Uinta Highline Trail in the Uinta Mountains of Utah is an east-west trail that's around 80 to 85 miles, kind of depending on how it's measured. And a few years ago, I'd set the fastest known time on that trail, and it was about 28 hours. And I knew that it was a slow time. I'd gotten lost for hours and hours. It had rained for 20 of the hours. It was cold, and so it was a really pretty tough solo endeavor. And there'd actually hadn't been a recorded women's crossing of it, and so I mentioned it to my wife Emily that would you be interested in doing the first women's running crossing? And she decided it'd be something fun, and so we went out and we spent the first 60 miles together, um, just getting us through the first night, so that minimize the danger aspect a little bit for both of us, since there's power in numbers. And then as soon as the sun came up the next morning, I took off on my own pace so that I could also set another men's record on the course. And we had wonderful weather. It was the first time I've ever spent a night in the Uinta Mountains at any time of year and not been snowed on. And so a lot of things like you had said about the weather that you can't control, things really did come together for us really well. But we still suffered from several navigational challenges and got off track quite a bit. And so, I think I finished in just under 27 hours, and I think she was just over 27 hours. And I'd like to go back in the next year or two, because I think there's a couple hours to be taken off that time as I get to know the trail better.
Yeah. That's always. I so far haven't gone to some of my stuff to repeat. Mostly because I was getting inspired by something else, but for sure I know on all these attempts, once you are done, you know that it was fast, you've done what you could, but you already know where time was wasted. So it's
Yeah, and that's good, because if everything went perfect, then you wouldn't have the next carrot to chase.
yeah, that's true. And okay, so you're balancing all this racing, your training, organizing, and work as well. So can you reveal what you do for a living?
I work in the technology industry, so I work for a data center company, and out for them, we sell outsourcing solutions. So basically, companies who are looking to, in essence, get rid of their own IT department, their own hosting, what they do, their own data centers. And so I work with those companies to put together solutions to solve their problems, I guess, and then help from a technical perspective design what would do that, and then help sell it to those customers. So sort of a cross between solution design and technical sales.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because I watched a couple interviews in the last couple of weeks. I guess perhaps with people that do the same, because I do websites and web development, and I also deal with hosting. And I just came across interviews how all these hosting centers work. So I was interested. Okay, and so how do you balance the whole thing? The because you are doing things on lots of different ends.
I would like to say I balance them well, but I don't think I probably do all the time. It's definitely challenging. I'm on the road for work. It depends what's happening, but sometimes as much as 50% of the time, and anywhere from 3 to 7 days in a row. And so the training can get challenging. I've learned to train in various adverse conditions, whether it's late at night or super early in the morning, on a hotel treadmill, um, after a couple beers with a client at night. It's just wherever I can fit it in is really where it ends up for my on the road training. My wife and I don't have kids, so that definitely makes it easy, so that when I am home, her and I can both focus on our training. Unfortunately, we're different paces, so we don't train together. We spend time driving to a trailhead, or post driving home from the trailhead training. But a lot of our training, most of our training's apart, so it makes the family juggling a little harder. So it's really, when I am home, it seems like I'm either still working, training, or trying to spend time with family and friends. And so it doesn't leave much downtime. TV is something that doesn't get turned on in our house very often, and it's pretty much work, train, get the house taken care of, and it's time for the next day, it seems like.
Yeah, I would have pretty much the same answer, in the sense that I don't think that you can really balance if you are trying to do something on multiple ends. It just, at one point you put more energy into that baby, and then you neglect something else, and then you have to take care of this other thing, and then you neglect the first. and you just keep kind of going. So I stopped thinking about balance, as people say, work-life balance or something like that. On a Definitely not on a day-to-day or not even weekly basis. I just view it as a very long-term thing, maybe over a year. And if over that year you were doing these bunch of things, then that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it because, you know, at least for my work, it ebbs and flows. It can be really busy for a month or 2 months, and you have no free time. But then you might have a quiet month or so. And so, you know, if I look at it over the year, I look at my last year, and I traveled more than I wanted to. I missed a lot of things that I would have wanted to take part in for travel for work. But in the same breath, I skied more. I ran some great races, skied some great races, and had some of my best finish times and finish places I've ever had. So overall, it still seems to be working successfully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's as you are doing it, like you have to be happy with in the moment situation, and then you have to have plans, but it will work itself out at the end always. Okay, so on organizing note, do you organize anything else besides the Wasatch Powder Keg?
Not myself. We have, we work as a group, as I'd mentioned, I think earlier when we talked that, we our citizen series that we have in the Wasatch, which was started by Andy and Jason DeRay, has really turned into a group committee endeavor. And so Andy and I and a bunch of others work very closely to put on that series. It's now actually gone from 8 races to 11 races during the season. And we have a good core group that helps get that put on. One of the races that we have this year is the Outdoor Retailer Trade Show race. So during the Outdoor Retailer Show on Mountain Demo, we'll actually have a race that's part of that, and we've done an unofficial race for a couple years, and now Andy and I were able to work closely together and get involved with Gore-Tex and the Outdoor Retailer organizers to get them to agree to make this an official event as part of the show. And so we're pretty excited for that. It'll be a short, 1 hour race, but I think it will do a lot to bring some visibility to the sport and the growth of the sport. And so that's been great. We've also worked really hard in the Wasatch. We've started a group that we are applying for nonprofit status called Utah Ski Mountaineering. And, the mission of our group is to our true mission statement is to advance the safety, skills, and sport of ski mountaineering in Utah and provide events of competition, education, and sportsmanship for growing a community of human-powered skiing and snowboarding. And so with that group, we're looking at it really being a way that we can organize events under one kind of umbrella and split the load between more people so that nobody gets burned out with these events, but also to try to grow the events. We now have over 100 people at our Citizen Series races, which are night races with headlamps. And that's grown, as I said, to 11 races. We have the Powder Keg, we have the Crowbar and Logan now as full races. And we have a group that's in the nonprofit that's now with a few women who are involved in it that are working on a women's ski mountaineering group to really focus on some of the women in the community that are, I would say, underrepresented, because we always have 5 to 7 to 8 times more men at our races than women, and we hear from people that they're intimidated. And so this group is starting more of a women's only group that can get together, they can practice, they can learn the skills, and they can do it where they're not intimidated, and then they'll start hopefully coming out to some of the bigger races as well. So I have my feet in a lot of different areas of the sport, and spread myself thin a little bit that way. But we have a good core group of people here in the Wasatch and beyond that are really working hard to really help grow the sport here. And so far we've been fairly successful in the last few seasons.
Yeah. So yeah, it seems like definitely you're involved in lots of things, and takes lots of time, but I believe that you like to do them all, from what I know about you and from when we talked. And you didn't mention the date for the outdoor retailer show race and perhaps where it would be.
So the Outdoor Retailer Show race is on January 21st. It's a Tuesday. It's the first day of the show. It's actually the day before the show officially starts, which is when the on mountain demo is, and that is going to be at 2 p.m. at Solitude Ski Resort. I guess the best place to get information about that race would be at utahskimo.org, and there's the whole calendar of events for all of our race series and all of Utah's posted on that site, and lots of other good details of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Okay. And the Citizen Series that runs at Brighton?
Yes, the Citizen Series runs at Brighton. Brighton has been just a leader in the community here for allowing uphill traffic. We have a low snow year right now, and it's not uncommon when we go up in the morning to see 20 to 25 people training at the resort, and so they've really embraced the uphill training and aspect, and it's really, if you go up there now in the morning, it's probably only 30% of the people are actually training, and the rest of it is just people who want to get some exercise that drove up from the city to do so. And so it's been great to have them to work with, both for uphill for the Citizen Series and especially for the Powder Keg, because we definitely we take over a large portion of the mountain for the Powder Keg, and they've been just fantastic to work with in getting us everything we need to put on a great and successful race.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, for sure. That's a really good resource there that they let you use it for training. Yeah, that's amazing. How many people do you get out for these Citizen Series races?
So when Andy and Jason started it, this will be the fourth year of it, but 4 years ago there were maybe 6 to 10 people. 3 years ago we were getting 30-ish. Last year we had grown it, and we were really excited when we hit 70 one night. And this year our first race of the season was Thanksgiving. We were expecting about 40 people to show up for our own version of a turkey trot race, and over 90 showed up. And since then, we've been averaging just over 100 people for the night series, which is it's fantastic. And the fact that there's so many people that want to come up and put a headlamp on and run around at night has been really great.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've been trying a little bit. Yeah, I've been a little bit out of it because I was injured, but guys around here, Squamish, BC, we're trying to put on a little night series. But there's some issues here because Squamish is on the sea level, so you gotta drive up to the mountain, but there is no resort around here. Well, there is Whistler close by, but they would never let us to do this. So we're just trying to be on some trails, and but mostly it's in the forest, as the Alpine is quite far. So that's the challenge, and yeah. But as you say, this might be our first year, and 4 years from now, something will happen and might evolve to something much bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all working towards the same goal of growing a sport that we love to participate in, and as we get a little bit older, I think we realize that our roles are changing to more promoters maybe than competitive racers.
Yeah, yeah. Like I see it myself. I am not married or I don't have kids, but I see this. It's like, okay, if once I have kids, or for any other kids that are not born yet, like if we can grow this great sport that they can participate in, and the barriers of entry are much lower than we had, then that's essentially that would be great. That the future generations can take, they can enter into something that we built. Yeah, and so you have 11 races, you say. Who comes up with the format every week? Is it the same? Is it different?
It is different every week, and so typically we have a few guidelines that we set around format, and it's mostly around time and distance and some of those. But we've split it up this year. I believe there's about 8 different people that are setting courses. Each one is responsible for 1 or 2 courses, and it really is something that comes up the day of or the day before, where we kind of determine what the format will be depending on whether what's happening for resort operations and some of those components. So Brighton has asked us to try to stay in a couple certain areas for the races, just so that we don't get too close to the groomers and other people who are working on the mountain at night. And then we really go by what we have for snow and what we have for weather. So, frequently they are multi-lap races of 300 to 700 feet of climbing. And so the serious racers will do a certain number of laps, and the recreation skiers will do a smaller number of laps. We also do King of the Hill or King of the Mountain style races, relay races. So it really just depends on the day and what we have to work with for that moment. But we always try to keep them about 1 hour in length, so that we try to start at 7, be done shortly after 8, and we congregate for awards at the bar at Brighton. And so then we can all be, hopefully by a little after 8 o'clock, we can all have a beer in our hand and ready for awards.
Yeah, and then I saw on photos on the Rise guys' blogs that usually someone ends up with a cake in their face.
Yeah, so it's in light of how this originally started, which was Andy and Jason and Jared and Noy and a few guys, deciding let's go beat each other up on Thanksgiving before we overeat our turkey dinner. So started out as kind of a Thanksgiving Day thing, and so pumpkin pie has become the winning prize. So as it is in Canada, there's only a few people who are always competing for the top race. So we don't ever award the winning prize to the same person twice, and we save the pumpkin pie for who we were going to declare the winner that night. And then we have a lot of great sponsors from some of the local people here that throw in some prizes. So we usually have a really great raffle each night as well. And it might be a true raffle drawing a name, but typically it's something just fun of who had the heaviest gear, who took the biggest fall, who had the best costume, who was there for the first time, whatever we can think of as we look at the box of prizes that we're raffling off. And we've had some great prizes, everything from season finale pairs of skis and bindings to shovels and probes by Volet, Gear 30, skimo.co, Backcountry, the Sport Loft, all these retailers and manufacturers have stepped up and helped support the event, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely see in the past, I guess, past 2-3 years the most, is that lots of outdoor companies that now they are recognizing finally that, wow, like this is a really growing movement, and they really want to be part of it, not just in terms of just like let's be part of it to make money, but they're really supporting these grassroots efforts or whatever races. So yeah, that's great. That essentially turned around what it used to be as a fringe sport. It's becoming much more popular, definitely.
Yeah, I think people are realizing that this is here to stay, and that there's a good market for it. While not a big market yet, it's a growing market, and there's advantages of being an early player in the market.
Yeah, definitely. And but well, it's hard to not participate in a sport that is the best there ever was. So they have to be part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And okay, you were talking about gear, and so let's say you have 70 to 90 people during those nights. What is the kind of, if you have the gradient of gear that is being used there?
We have absolutely everything, which is really the whole purpose of the Citizen Series, is a non-intimidating atmosphere. And so I would say 25 to 35% of the people might be on race gear, and everybody else is on standard touring gear. And we have everything from split boards to big fat powder skis that are 120 millimeters under waist to more of an all mountain ski. Dynafit bindings, Fritchie bindings. Every now and then we'll get some marker Dukes even. So really, just every gear goes, and there's only about a half dozen people who are actually competing at the front of the pack, and maybe even less than that. Probably in reality, it's probably 3 or 4 people that are competing at the front, and so it's really developed into kind of a neat little atmosphere of there's little micro groups within there that are competing against each other. So it seems like every week you have the same 6 to 8 to 10 people who are competing against each other in their own little group of abilities. And so they can gauge their own progress by how they're competing in their own group. And it's made it a lot of fun to where people don't feel like you're not competing against Jason DeRay or Tom Goth. You're competing against the people of your own ability and level.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That even throughout the year, throughout the season, these groups they evolved, and then they meet at certain races, and they know that you finish around this guy, and then you're gonna find yourself around there likely too, and you try to beat each other, and then yeah, it's good. It definitely helps. Like all these groups are making themselves faster.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it's amazing as you watch as people come the first time and then they come more and more you know they come a couple times on heavy gear and pretty soon they'll have something lighter and they really it's been great for people to get to experience the light gear as well and it helps people realize that there is a purpose that you don't have to ski 110 or 120 millimeter ski underfoot all the time because I think a lot of us that have started racing more and more tour on lighter gear now because we realize we can go longer and farther and have even more fun because we're not working as hard. And you definitely see people are developing more of a quiver that their race or their lighter gear is carrying over into some of their backcountry skiing now.
yeah, yeah. I'm a big believer and proponent that essentially anyone that likes backcountry skiing and skis even 10 plus days in the backcountry that it's really worth it to have two pairs of skis or even two pairs of boots that are different. And let's say in Canada here, obviously, you need to have one pair of skis that is 100 millimeters underfoot, around there or more. And then, depending on how serious you are on racing, you might end up on a 65 millimeter ski. Or if you want to race as well, but you are not too obsessed about it, then like a ski like the Inafit Broad Peak, which is 74 underfoot, still pretty light, really good ski. You can you can also race on that. You're not gonna win on it, but you can race on it very well. And then you can use it in spring conditions. So I believe in two pairs of skis for sure that are different. And also I think one of the barriers that has been that people hasn't been maybe picking up the racing more is that historically they all had fairly heavy gear and then they went up a resort or something to try just before work just to have an exercise, but then you look at your watch and you see, okay, it's taking me like 50 minutes to climb 300-400 meters, then I ski down, which 300 meters is not much, and then I go to work. I might as well go do something else than do this. But once you have the light gear, you will realize before work I can climb 600-700 meters and ski down and go to work. Then it makes it worth it to go and to do that instead of going to the gym. So that's kind of how I see it.
No, and
Yeah.
I think that's right too. Is you definitely do see that progression, and it's hard to justify driving up to a mountain to get a 1 hour workout, and you're only climbing 1,500 or 2,000 feet. And as soon as people get the light gear, they realize pretty quickly you know why people go up frequently to do the workouts.
Yeah, yeah, and okay, I just figured out I wanted to ask you because you are pretty tall. How tall are you?
A little over 6'1".
Okay, okay, so then we are perhaps an inch shorter. How long are your ski poles?
I currently use 140 centimeter poles, so I kind of go in between the two camps of long poles and a little shorter. Um, I do like, and when you and Mel were talking, you were talking about using more legs and less arms, and I actually like using a lot of arms in the first part of a race and then save my legs as much as possible for later on. And so I try to find the happy medium between a pole that I can really get a good Nordic style glide on and still not encumber myself with my hands too far up in the air.
Yeah, yeah. I need to experiment this year more with go back again to longer poles because I used to use them, then went back. I went shorter because I saw more benefits, but I want to definitely try again because I think why I switched to shorter it made sense, but I also some of the reasons that I had at the time, uh, or I kind of saw as reasons. I think some people, let's say, proved me wrong on those, or I saw. I'm like, okay. So I think I need to have a different approach and look at it differently and try them again and
And,
see
and
how that works.
and like you and Mel talked about, I think there's I think there's a need to have both length poles for different races as well.
Yeah,
Um, it's probably one of those things where there's not one length suits every need.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And what race gear are you this year on?
I'm on the Scarpa Alien 1.0s, and I just actually this last weekend was my first racing weekend on the brand new Hagan X-Race ski with a SkiTrack TR race binding. And I'd been on the older style Hagan X-Race for the last couple seasons, and this new ski is fantastic. It skis better than any other race ski I've skied. And so skiing some powder conditions this weekend at the Wyoming Roundup, it was an absolute treat to ski, and I know how much I would have struggled with the old version.
Okay, that's good to hear because I'm just getting molded my aliens too. I'm switching to those from old Pierre Ginoux. And I also got the Hagan X-Ray skis. I'm just getting those mounted with their new binding, the ZR.
Yep.
And but it's good to hear that you like how they ski because when I picked them up, they felt quite softer than what I was used to. I instantly knew it would be good in soft snow. Uh, when it's too hard, then any race ski is harder to ski on. So that's still something to that I will figure out in the spring. But it's good to hear, yeah, because also in Canada here, all races are mostly in soft snow and some powder is involved, and this ski has a big shallow. So that's good to hear because I started to be a little nervous in terms of how it might ski.
No, it skis better than the old version, and it's longer and fatter and lighter.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really, I think they did a really good job on it, across the board. So I was really happy with it, and I don't think if I were you, I wouldn't worry about how it skis on hard pack. I've been doing, I had 2 days of training on them at Brighton here, and it was, very hard pack, groomed runs, and they just rail. I mean, you can point them at high speed and just dig a rut into the mountain pretty good. So they're a lot of fun at high speed on hard ground.
Okay, then I am looking forward to them. I just they are just being mounted, maybe as we speak. Yeah, and I haven't been on the race skis yet this year because I had my ankle injured, and I just got back on skis over the last weekend. So definitely need to get back on those.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect. I'm sure you're chomping at the bit for it then.
Barn.
I'm sure you're chomping at the bit to get out on the race gear.
Yeah, for sure. Like to use just to see how after my long because I was pretty much sitting and lying on a couch for 4 weeks in November, early December, then started to bike a little bit, and so I'm definitely interested how the turnover is in the race gear. So will be interesting if I'll probably be quite rusty in conditioning and skills in the at my first race, and then hopefully I'll be much better at powder keg
And
when they
when is
come
your
out.
first race, Stan?
Well, there is one Canadian race here this coming weekend, but it's in southwest corner of Alberta, Castle Mountain skimo race. And I decided not to go because with the whole commitment of driving there is people going from here, from the west coast, but I just have also some work to do. That for I'm not. good enough to race now, conditioning wise, definitely. So I decided to opt out from that. So I'll do my first in February, and then do another one about a week before Powder Keg. And I can race myself into it. Just I need one or two races to set my mind the right way, and then it works. So it's all upstairs.
Yes, it definitely is because it's a painful sport. So if you can't keep your head about it, it makes
Yeah.
it even worse.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and so I'm gonna ask you, what would you advise? Maybe three tips for skimo race organizers that would wanna provide a great experience for their for the people that participate to make it an event that they will consider, if not really want to right away come back to. What would you advise? Like,
Yeah, I think the number one thing is a good course. So put a lot of effort into what your course is going to be, the route. Making sure that it's flagged well. Everything that if you were racing it and assume that most of the people that coming won't know the terrain, they won't have been able to see the course ahead of time, and so kind of think like the racer that drove into town on Friday night and is showing up to race on Saturday morning. Um, yeah, that's key. The other one is to make it fun. I think there's in the end it's still a growing sport in the U.S. So the bulk of the racers, like in the Wasatch, in most of the races I see, it's still 60 to 75% of the racers are just there to have a good time. They're not competing at the top level. So make it a fun event for them. Don't make it just about the top 5 to 10% of the people competing. Um, and then I guess the third one, I kind of grouped a couple in with the first one for the course and the flagging. Um, but I
yeah,
guess I'm not sure on a third one. I think that kind of covers it all. If you have a good course and you have a good event, people will come to it.
yeah, good party also helps.
Good party definitely helps. I think a beer at the finish line, a free beer with your registration is mandatory.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that's also my idea, and I would want to say that I think when we talked here also with David Dornian, that whether people are maybe getting intimidated because you say, okay, this race is on a Canadian schemo calendar or USSMA schemo calendar, that maybe sometimes people are intimidated by that status of the race. But I just want to say that it's a growing sport, so we are trying to call anything like a Canadian Cup race. Like, I mean, the organization is there, the course is great, but so far we don't have so many events that we can say, okay, this is not in the cup and that is. So I would just encourage people, just try whichever. The name of that doesn't mean anything. It just means that we want to keep track of points from those races, and so yeah, that. So don't feel intimidated for sure.
No, I agree. And I guess as a race organizer, don't be shy about reaching out to other race organizers. Most of us that put on races are more than happy to answer questions and help out with a first time race organizer of whatever they may need. And so reach out to the fellow people in the community for as a sounding board, and it'll definitely help make your life easier as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my idea when I wrote the article a couple of weeks back. Essentially, I think it was called Nine Simple Tips for Skimmer Race Organizers. Was the idea was as well like to put what I see the main pain points for as a racer, and then essentially give those to organizers, and they can choose any of them, or the priority of them, it's up to them. But that those are really key to us as racers, and that was my idea, is to spread it to the community. And ultimately, I don't know how many organizers whether they read it or not, because I didn't have comments from them. I sure got more comments from racers. But I just hope someone read it, and then when someone asks them, they can just say, well, there's a resource, you can take a look at that, it's a great starting point. Or if they don't have the time right then. So
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
yeah, okay, so that's great that we were able to talk and talk about organizing, because it's usually about just racing, but a big huge part, well, 50% at least part of growing a sport is the people that we don't see. And yeah, and I'm really looking forward to come down to the Powder Keg, and should be about 4 or 5 of us coming from the coast. We haven't even talked to the other guys in Canada, but we'll be a good crew. And I really like the format, the 3 days, because the first days, if you have a 1 day race, you feel always nervous, but then after that's done, you relax and you're able to enjoy way more the experience. So yeah, will be cool, and we may come down a few days before and ski around.
Yeah, I definitely. I hope you guys do, and come, get a hold of us before you come down, and we can set you up with some good tours or some touring partners, whatever you need. And you know, I hope we have good weather like we usually do, and we're excited for all you guys to come down. And I think it should be a good little North American challenge between our groups, and that's always fun to see it play out.
What do you want us to bring down there? Like lots of maple syrup, or
Well, I mean, you're on the coast. You better bring us some good salmon.
okay, salmon. And you, I have to tell you, as I come from Europe and I like beer and you like beer, there's been lots of small local breweries popping up in the past couple of years, and some of them are really good. So I'm gonna make a note right after we are done into my phone to bring you a selection of the local.
Perfect. And I
Yeah.
think you'll be happy with our one of our sponsors is one of the local breweries here called Epic, and they provide us with several cases of fantastic beer to serve at the finish line. So I don't think you'll be disappointed by that at all.
Okay, okay, that good. We can exchange the beers.
So that would be perfect.
Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed my talk with Chad, and I want to just give you a brief preview of the Dogtooth Dash, the Canadian Championships that are coming up on March 21st and 22nd. So on March 21st, what we decided to do is that we will host a vertical championship race of about 700 to 800 meters of ascent, but it will be under the stars with headlamps, and we are not so sure so far with the start whether we'll start people as a time trial like in cycling, so we'll release people in 20-second intervals, or we'll do a big mass start. And perhaps you can give us a feedback on that, which one you would like more. Okay, then on Saturday there will be the big championship race for the individual, which will be on the traditional course of the Dogtooth Dash, which in my opinion is the best course in Canada, definitely, and perhaps in North America as well. There is lots of great skiing, challenging skiing, lots of switchbacks. It's very technical. Altogether about 1600 meters of elevation gain. The course starts at 2400 meters at the restaurant, so at the top of the resort, and goes down and then kind of goes up and down between 2000 meters and 2600 meters, and it's always great atmosphere. And what we are trying to do this year as a new thing is the party on Saturday, to make it really fun, to make us all dancing, and to make it almost like a closing thing to the season, as that will be mostly the last important race on the North American calendar. For sure there is more races in April in Colorado, and we'll have one as well in Canada, but that will be the last championship race on the continent. And yeah, before in the previous years we had a race on Sunday, which was a kind of like a fun sprint race, and everyone hesitated to just relax on Saturday and just to lay it out all on the dance floor. So we hope to fix that this year, and the registration information will be coming out soon. We are just sorting things out with the resort, which we are really thankful they are fully behind it, the Kicking Horse Mountain Resort near Golden, BC. And if anyone from states or from far away wants to come and need some help, please let me know, and we'll try to find the best solution, and we'll try to advise you as best as we can where you should stay and all that. So yeah, and look on SkinTrack, keep in touch, because we'll be posting the registration and all the details about this race shortly. So thank you very much for listening again, and I have no idea who the next guest will be or what the next podcast will be, but it will be great as usual. Thank you. Bye.